getting into the ground, it just felt that great kind of start of season feel. You know, you've got the sun shining, a really busy Prenton Park, great atmosphere, and I think it's probably fair to say the game didn't quite live up to the billing. However, it was two sides with quite different styles. It was interesting to listen to Nigel's post match on this as well, and kind of his analysis. But we kind of started both halves better than we did in the rest of the half. They have a very, very particular way of playing, and I think they're continued reliance on going to ground whenever we would try and either push onto them, break them up. It was very frustrating. So there's probably elements of the refereeing performance that we could look at as well. But you could look at it and think the most important thing there, after a couple of seasons of losing the opening game, is we didn't lose. We kept a clean sheet, but neither side really created a huge amount for each goalkeeper to do. I think maybe one or two shots on target each team. There was a lot of play in the midfield. There was a lot of kind of coming up and assessing each other and sensing each other out. And I think probably for me, it showed where we really lack a replacement for Rob Apter, because we played a similar kind of tactic really to, I think, what Nigel set us out last season, which is kind of stay compact, stay in games, look for opportunities on the break. And a couple of times it was crying out for that pacey wide player to be the one breaking the lines for us. And we didn't really have that. I think we started with Jennings and Morris in the wide positions. I think Jennings wide left doesn't look a natural position for him. It's interesting that we've decided to go with the wingers inverted, because obviously we're quite used to seeing Morris on the left-hand side, where we've seen Jennings play on the right, less so the other way around. Didn't really work for us too much. I thought Jennings struggled a bit yesterday, even though there was no through no lack of effort. But I just don't think anything was really working for him yesterday. The big takeaway for me was I thought the defense were superb. I thought Brad Walker slotted in there brilliantly. We've seen him in the preseason friendlies playing there, and I think he did another really, really good job against some big, strong players today. We also had Tom Davis, I think, was right up there for man of the match. Connor Wood had a great game, I thought, as well. A couple of iffy moments early on, but generally I thought he was superb. And Regan Hendry's probably the player I'd pick out. I thought he had a really, really good game and was trying his hardest to pull the strings. But otherwise, it was, we huffed and puffed. And we tried at times. We had a good spell in that 10, 15 minutes of the second half. Probably our best chance of the game coming from that break with Davison running through and just not really getting anything behind the shot. But otherwise, it wasn't a huge amount for us to shout about. I think there was times when that enthusiasm from the crowd dipped out a bit. We probably, could have done with a bit more to get the crowd up and shouting and behind. But, having, slept on it now, I think you look at it and you think, we've started the season with a draw. They're a good side, Notts County. They showed why they'll be more than likely up and challenging. And I think it's a foundation for us to build on. But I do think we're still looking at it now and thinking, where are those goals going to come from that would help fire the playoff push? And I think when we put Patrick on, people were, it felt like the right time for it. It felt like he was going to offer that pace and power, and we just couldn't really get him on the ball. And it was noticeable, actually, that once he came on, I think they had more opportunities, because he's probably less of a diligent defender or support for a fullback than you've got from, say, a Connor Jennings there or even Morris on the other side. And I think they exploited that a little bit. He did have one really good chance to run, and you thought he was going to kind of do what he did against Blackpool, and then probably Regan Hendry gets himself into the place where Patrick probably wanted to charge into, and maybe just gave him the option, which he took and played a poor ball through. But I'm not coming away disheartened, but I think you can see where maybe the gaps are, or where teams are less going to be worried about us. Notts County didn't really have to worry about pace and behind yesterday. You could see they were comfortable pushing onto us and not worrying we would have a player who would charge in, and that's what Rob Apter did last season. It's what potentially Murray Patrick could do if he got a few starts this season. So things to think about, but yeah, it wasn't the most, as you say, it wasn't the most inspiring of starts to a season.
A 0-0 draw, I reckon, in terms of listenership, the amount of people who want to tune into this podcast, it probably couldn't have been worse. But there are still, as you've just touched upon, lots to talk about. I actually want to start with the attendance because you mentioned it yesterday, a good crowd, a good atmosphere inside Prenton Park. And that crowd actually totaled 8,198. Now, people will know that that would mean the writing is on the wall for Tranmere, because whenever a crowd of over 8,000 is inside Prenton Park, Tranmere inevitably do not win if it is a regular league fixture. However, and I know Notts County brought a good chunk of fans, four figures themselves. That is the biggest crowd Tranmere have had for their opening home league game since 2007-8, when they played Leeds United on the opening day of the season. Ronnie Moore was in charge of Tranmere that day. Tranmere lost 2-1. Chris Greenacre scored the Rovers' goal. 11,008 people were inside Prenton Park for that one. And I've looked back on the figures, and this is 2,000-3,000 more than most of the opening day attendances in the subsequent years. I mean, that is something in itself. The crowd or the fans, look, I know it's the opening day, so you always get a bigger attendance, but there were around about 6,300, 6,400 Tranmere fans inside Prenton Park on Saturday afternoon. That shows that some of those floating fans of the last few years are maybe a little bit excited about what they're seeing Nigel Adkins build.
Yeah, I think so. I didn't book my ticket until quite late, and I went onto the ticketing site yesterday morning, and very few seats available in the Kop, which was actually quite nice to see. Yeah, it felt like that. It felt like an enthusiasm behind a project that we haven't really had. And I would add on top of that we had the situation yesterday that anyone could have sat and watched that game at home on the television as well if they had access to Sky. So, I've seen quite a bit of commentary from other areas of the leagues where people are saying that attendances were down, or that there was a real negative impact of that every game being televised, which we obviously didn't see yesterday for us. So yeah, I think there is a we know that if the fans buy into a project, if they feel there's something exciting going on, that we know that fan base is there to be tapped into beyond the core who go, no matter whether it's a Dawes team or an Adkins team. But it certainly feels like we've built on something from last season. We've kept a core of a squad. We've got a manager who, oozes passion and enthusiasm and positivity. And I think also probably people were looking at those last few preseason games and feeling we'd beaten a few sides from a league above, and there was something exciting maybe going on potentially. But yeah, no, I thought it was great. Like I say, the atmosphere at the start was fantastic. And what I hope is that we don't, that those guys come back. Maybe it'll take a game where we put 2 or 3 past the team. But I think there is the potential, if we do start to build a good season and we're up there and challenging, that those attendances will shift higher than we've seen in the last few seasons for sure.